Oh, well, hey guys. You caught me catching up on my reading here in the church library. Also serves as a great backdrop for any video, especially an online Bible study. Well, hey, today we are in John chapter 10. John chapter 10. The main emphasis, John chapter 10, is the identity of Jesus. And we have two of these great I am statements in John chapter 10. Jesus says, I am the door and I am the good shepherd. Now, in this, we see Jesus communicating to the people real quickly about what this means. He tells them that thieves and robbers, this is the first 6 verses, thieves and robbers enter by ways other than the door. He says the shepherd enters by the door. He says that the sheep follow the shepherd and the sheep will not follow the voice of anyone else. Well, the people are looking around at each other, they don't get it. Jesus knows they don't get it. And he backs up and he teaches this again. And he shares a more full version of what is going on. Now, this is interesting because Jesus doesn't always do this. He doesn't always give a more fuller version of what he is saying. Sometimes when he teaches a parable, he just leaves it at that. And then he goes on. But here he gives a lot more explanation. And he starts off with this, telling them he is the door. The door to what? He is the door to the kingdom of God. He is the way of salvation. And he tells them that thieves and robbers try to come in another way, but he is the only way into the kingdom. He just a little free for nothing. As you guys study the Bible and you read, especially when you're reading the parables and when Jesus is communicating things, he is almost always talking about the kingdom of God when he's sharing a parable of things. And so he's going to talk about the truth of the kingdom of God, how you enter the kingdom of God, the king of the kingdom of God, talking about those who are not going to be in the kingdom of God. And so he uses this imagery and he uses material things in our world to illustrate that to them. Here it's the door. The door is to the sheepfold where the sheep are, but he's talking about himself being this door. He moves on then and he talks about the fact that he is the good shepherd. Not only is he the door on which the people may enter through, but he is the good shepherd. He says the thief is the one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus has come to give life and to give it in abundance. That is a life verse for me. It's a very important verse to me. If you ever go to the Max and you read the back wall, that's the verse there. That he has come to give life and that it is abundant. The things that we give up, the things that we say no to, saying no to the world, saying no to the desires of the flesh, is not something that we should do grudgingly, because we understand that he's come to give us real life and give his life to its fullness. And so those things that we lay down are not real life, those pursuits of the flesh and pursuits of the world. Jesus has come to give full life. He is the good shepherd. He says the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The good shepherd is one that the sheep know his voice and the sheep follow after him. He says a good shepherd, later on, he talks about the good shepherd as one that when he calls his sheep come to him and they're in his hand, in his grasp, and nobody can take them out. He says they're in his Father's hand and nobody can take them out. His sheep are his and they're his for all of eternity. In a primer yesterday that you guys looked at, you looked at Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34 is a prophecy of a shepherd. This is what Jesus has in mind when he's saying he is a good shepherd. Ezekiel 34. Because in Ezekiel chapter 34, God talks about the shepherds of his people. These shepherds are the leaders in their day, the priests, the king, or everybody who's over the people. But these shepherds are not doing their job. He says these shepherds have fed themselves, but not the sheep. These shepherds have actually slaughtered the sheep for their own benefit. These shepherds do not care for the weak or the injured. They're not going after the lost sheep, and that the sheep are now being scattered. God's judgment will come against these shepherds. Then God says this in Ezekiel chapter 34. He says that he is actually going to be their shepherd. What did Jesus say? I am the good shepherd. And God says in Ezekiel chapter 34, I will be their shepherd. I will feed them. I will go after them. I will seek them. And I will give them pastures to lie down in. That brings to mind a reference to Psalm 23. Psalm 23, he says, I will lead them beside still waters. God caring for his sheep, his flock. As we read through in Ezekiel chapter 34, we also come to this, that he says, another prophetic statement is that God says, and I'm going to set up my shepherd who will be over them, my servant David. Now, he is not talking about a reincarnated version of King David, because Ezekiel comes many, many years after David's death, but he's talking about a prophetic reference to the heir of David's throne, who is Jesus. It is a messianic prophecy. And Jesus shares this to the people, shares of these truths, but the people go crazy. Some of them say, he's got a demon. But then there are others say, can a demon open the eyes of a blind man? And there is a division among the people. Some believe and some don't. Jesus challenges them, look at my works, look at my teachings. You're mad, you're frustrated, some of them, they wanted to kill him. They picked up stones as if to stone him to death. But Jesus says, look at my works. What of my works in my life are you getting ready to stone me for? And they say this, it is not because of your works. He says because it's blasphemy, because you being a man make yourself God. The Jews said this. Did Jesus ever claim to be God? Well, his enemies sure thought he did. His disciples sure thought he did. And Jesus made this clear over and over and over, that he is one with God, the Son of God, God in flesh. Hey, tomorrow we're going to be in John chapter 11. Keep reading. See you then. You can just come back. See, where was I?